Namaskar, hello everyone. First of all, the students who have appeared in the exam, I really hope that the exam went well. This particular video is about GS paper 1, and I am going to talk about the questions which came from the subjects of MIH, post-independence India and world history. Overall, one can say that 4 questions came, or one can say 5 questions came from these subjects. From MIH, it was 1 question which was on the writings and the efforts of Jyotirao Phule, and that question is actually inspired from the current affairs, because on the Independence Day speech, the Honorable Prime Minister announced that 200th anniversary of Jyotirao Phule will be celebrated by the government. Also, recently the Maharashtra Assembly had also suggested the names of Jyotirao Phule and his wife Savitribai Phule for Bharat Ratna, and therefore this is how this particular topic had been accentuated. Especially in my previous videos, I had mentioned that it has been some years that questions have not been asked from the social reforms aspect, and therefore I had requested the students to give importance to social reforms. But yes, when you study the static books, not much content is there on Jyotirao Phule. So therefore, inspired by the current affairs, how can you approach that particular questions? Well, the question needs to be structured about the subaltern classes. That is, what were the efforts with respect to, let's say, the education of the children, education of the female child, efforts towards curtailing curtailing child marriage, promoting widow remarriage, right? Then apart from that, his efforts towards the peasants, towards the working class. For example, he was co-founder of Bombay Mill Hands Association with Narayan Lokhande, these kind of things, right? And yes, some factual knowledge would have to be there in the answer, because the mention of the writings is to be there, right? With respect to the questions from post-independence India, so therefore the question came about that in the early phase of our post-independence era, how we consolidated the solutions to the problems which were economic, political, cultural, etc. in nature, right? So therefore that's a standard question, because it's kind of like a favorite question of the UPSC. It has been repeated multiple times in the past previous years, right? So therefore we come to know that focus on the PYQs is important, right? There you can talk about the integration of the princely states, followed by the reorganization of the states on linguistic basis, its relation with the Indian national movement demand of linguistic reorganization of the provinces of British India, right? So that would be about polity. With respect to official language also, things they can be added, that how multiple languages they were made part of the official language, that is the 8th schedule. Then with respect to economic consolidation, we can mention the problems which we had inherited because of colonial past, and the planned approach of 5-year plans that we adopted with assistance from the superpower USSR, right? And how we tried to have a non-aligned stand, so that we can get resources, we can get technology funding for the purposes of development, right? International polity can also be included, where you can again highlight the NAM aspect, right? So these are some of the aspects which can be mentioned. Broad thought process is to be a structuring of the answer into these components as suggested by the question itself, right? The next question, well, it can go to the domain of society also, because it was about the tribal displacement and the rehabilitation, right? So I think more or less it is a question of society, but yes, you can put it in post-independence India as well, right? So that question is kind of like it used to be a very peak kind of a question, very important kind of question 10 years back, because 10 years have gone by and a lot of efforts have been made with respect to tribal rehabilitation. So ideal would have been that UPSC asked question about the success or the failures of the rehab, but fine, it's a static question and it's a static subject, so therefore question can be asked from any time period, no issues. Lastly, one question which is kind of like question of the ethics subject. It is about the ethics of a bureaucrat. That is, 2 qualities are required. One is professionalism, and second is national consciousness or nationalist consciousness or nationalism, right? It can be made part of the modern Indian history perspective, because the moderate leaders, they constantly desired or demanded Indianization of civil services. Then there have been what you call as certain ex-ICS officers, right? For example, R.C. Dutt, his book Economic History of India contributed greatly to the drain theory. Then we had certain nationalist civil servants who either did not join the civil services, example Shri Aurobindo Ghosh, or you who resigned, example All India Rank 4 Netaji Subhash Chandra Bose, right? So then apart from this, you can mention other aspects also, that how the Britishers, they used the civil services to rule India, and that very same steel frame was converted into a nationalist tool after independence, right? And there we can also talk about Sardar Vallabhbhai Patel, and then the other parts. With respect to professionalism, we can cite history, that how the exam began in 1853. The first exam got conducted in 1922 in India. How the different services were organized in a very professional manner on the basis of subjects. For example, IPS was a separate service. Gradually, Indian Forest Services also came along. Other central civil services, they also came into existence in 1900. So therefore, yeah, a lot of content is there, and ideally that question is of ethics, but because it came in paper 1, so historical perspective, it can be brought into that, right? So that would be my take, right, on these subjects, right? One question came from world history, and that is kind of like a repeat question, that how the French Revolution and the learnings from the French Revolution and its outcomes, they are relevant in contemporary world also, right? So French Revolution, it is known for establishment of First Republic, right? So therefore, basically, if you list out these consequences, example the First Republic, then we have what you call as concept of Napoleonic Code, right? And therefore how the different codes like our own IPC, CRPC, CPC, they were inspired from the Napoleonic Code. Then we have the idea of Jacobin Constitution, which basically said that right to vote should not be linked with income criteria, and it was the Jacobin Constitution which brought universal adult franchise for all males, though, right, above 21 years of age, right? Certain negative consequences also, that for example, the reign of terror, which was there from 1792 to 94, right? How it butchered democracy, and therefore we either we have to be cautious from the consequences of the French Revolution, or we have to be inspired from the consequences of the French Revolution. The idea of modern nation, it was born out of the Declaration of Rights of Man and Citizen, which was given by the leaders of the French Revolution, right? So therefore all of these things, for example, the because the workers, they did not benefit from the French Revolution, therefore that resulted in what you call as birth of Marxism in a way, right? Because early socialism began after that. So therefore, how we should ensure that the fruits of democracy, the fruits of end of feudalism, are made available to every section of the society. So a lot of things, they can be written on that, right? And we can associate with the problems of the not just India but of the world at this particular point of time, right? So that is how it is, right? So thank you, God bless you, take care. That's it from my side.